Light is both wave and particle. The opposite statement is also true. Light is neither wave nor particle. I spent a lifetime wrestling with this, and I must tell you, the discomfort you feel reading those words is not confusion. It is the first tremor of understanding. There is something about reality that no one discusses anymore, though it shook us to our cores in Copenhagen. We speak now of quantum mechanics as settled science, as mathematical machinery that produces correct predictions. We treat it as a tool. But we have forgotten, or perhaps we choose not to remember, that quantum mechanics revealed something far more unsettling than new laws of physics. It revealed that reality itself has boundaries built into its very fabric, not boundaries of space or time, not limits on what we can measure with better instruments, but limits on what can be meaningfully known at all. Let me take you back to those extraordinary years, the 1920s, Copenhagen, the institute where young physicists gathered, where we talked through winter evenings until the questions themselves seemed to dissolve into the Danish darkness. We had broken open the atom and found something that refused to behave according to any logic our minds had evolved to grasp. And in that breaking open, we discovered that nature places constraints not on what exists, but on what can be said to exist. This is what no one discusses. Bohr's true discovery was not about particles or waves, it was about the limits of description itself. Consider what happens when you observe an electron. You must shine light upon it, must bounce photons off its surface to know where it is. This seems reasonable enough, but here is what classical thinking misses. The moment you illuminate the electron to find its position, you have changed its momentum. The photon you used to see it has pushed it, altered it, made it into something other than what it was before you looked. And if you try to measure its momentum instead, using gentler light with longer wavelengths, you lose precision about its position. The electron blurs, spreads out, becomes uncertain in space. Perhaps, you might think, we simply need more careful measurement, better technology, gentler probes, and yet, no. This is not a limitation of our instruments. This is reality telling us something profound about itself. Heisenberg formalized this as his uncertainty principle, but I understood it differently. More deeply, perhaps, or perhaps simply more philosophically. The limit is not that we cannot measure both position and momentum simultaneously. The limit is that an electron does not possess definite position and momentum simultaneously. Not before we measure, not in any hidden way we simply cannot access. The properties themselves do not exist until we choose which question to ask. Reality, I came to understand, does not provide answers to questions we do not pose through measurement. And once we pose one question, we have made it impossible to pose certain others. The universe enforces a kind of grammar upon us. Some questions asked together become meaningless, not because our language fails, but because nature itself has no answer to give. I called this complementarity. The word sounds technical, abstract. But let me tell you what it meant to me during those long nights of contemplation. It meant that reality requires multiple descriptions that cannot be unified. Wave and particle, position and momentum, the descriptions are not incomplete versions of some deeper truth. They are complete in themselves, and they are incompatible with each other, both necessary, both accurate, both impossible to hold simultaneously. Think of trying to observe a wave. You need it to spread out, to interfere with itself, to demonstrate its wave-like nature over space and time. But to observe a particle, you need a definite location, a moment of impact, a point where something discrete happens. These two observations cannot be performed at once, not because we lack skill, because the setups required are mutually exclusive. The experimental arrangement that reveals waves makes particles impossible to see. The arrangement that reveals particles makes waves impossible to observe. And yet the electron is not sometimes a wave, sometimes a particle. It is fundamentally both. Or, more precisely, it is fundamentally neither, until we force it to become one through our choice of measurement. The reality of the electron exists in a space our language cannot capture. We can describe its wave aspect. We can describe its particle aspect. But we cannot describe what it really is before measurement, because there is no really is independent of how we look. This troubled Einstein deeply. It pained me to disagree with him. He was my hero, my friend, the man whose work on light quanta had opened these very doors. But he could not accept what quantum mechanics was telling us. God does not play dice, he said. He believed our theory was incomplete, that somewhere beneath the quantum description lay a more fundamental reality where particles had definite properties even when we were not looking. Hidden variables, some called it. A deeper layer we had not yet discovered. But I knew, and this was the discovery no one discusses, that there is no deeper layer to discover. Not because we lack the tools to find it, because the question itself dissolves under scrutiny. Einstein would propose thought experiments designed to catch the universe in contradiction. If we measured a particle here, we would instantly know something about its entangled partner far away, faster than light could travel between them. Surely this meant the particles possessed those properties all along. Surely quantum mechanics was simply ignorant of the underlying reality? No, and this no contains everything that matters. The particles do not possess properties before measurement. The act of measurement on one instantly affects what can be said about the other, not through any signal passing between them, but because they form a single system. Reality exists in relationships, not in isolated objects. The two particles are not separate things that happen to be correlated. They are aspects of one quantum whole that we have artificially separated in our descriptions. This is the limit reality imposes. We cannot step outside the measurement to see what really happens. We are not observers standing apart from nature, describing it objectively. We are participants. The measurement is an interaction between our apparatus and the quantum system, and that interaction is where reality becomes definite. Before measurement, the system exists in superposition, not in an unknown state we simply have not checked, but in a genuine multiplicity that collapses into definiteness only when we look. Or so it seems. But even this language fails. Collapse suggests a process, something that happens in time. And yet, what happens and when? The boundary between quantum and classical, between indefinite superposition and definite outcome. Where does this boundary lie? In the particle? In the detector? In the conscious observer? I never resolved this. I became comfortable not resolving it. This is what Copenhagen taught me. To accept that some questions lead to infinite regress, that the line between observer and observed is not sharp, but rather fades into complementarity, that perhaps consciousness itself is woven into the measurement process in ways we cannot formalize. The limit reality imposes is not just on knowledge. It is on the very concept of independent, objective reality existing apart from observation. Physics, I came to believe, does not describe the world as it is. It describes what we can say about the world through measurement. And this is not a limitation of physics. This is all that physics can be, because this is all that reality means in the only sense we can access. Nature refuses to answer certain questions. Ask where the electron is, and nature answers. But the answer erases information about momentum. Ask about momentum, and position becomes indeterminate. The limit is not in our asking. The limit is built into nature's grammar. Some questions posed together are like asking what color a sound is. The question sounds reasonable, but breaks against the structure of reality itself. This is radically different from other limits in physics. The speed of light is a limit on how fast things can travel, but objects still have definite speeds. The quantum of action is a limit on divisibility, but energy still has definite values. Bohr's limit is different. It is a limit on definiteness itself, a limit on what can be said to be real before we interact with it. And here is what truly no one discusses. This limit is final, not provisional, not "we haven't discovered the deeper layer yet." Final, absolute, built into the structure of existence. There is no hidden machinery beneath quantum mechanics that would restore classical definiteness if only we could access it. The machinery of the universe is irreducibly complementary. Reality does not provide the complete unified picture our minds crave. This makes people uncomfortable. It made Einstein uncomfortable. It makes students uncomfortable when they first encounter it, and their discomfort is often hurriedly paved over with mathematics and predictions and shut up and calculate pragmatism. But the discomfort is justified. We are being told that reality is not what we thought, not what our intuitions evolved to handle, not what our language can capture in a single coherent description. I spent decades defending this interpretation, the Copenhagen interpretation, they call it now, though it was never a single doctrine, but rather a way of thinking about what quantum mechanics means. And what it means is this: reality has a built-in limit on how completely it can be known or described. This limit is not temporary. It is not technological. It is conceptual, fundamental, final. Why is this limit there, one might ask? One might also ask whether why is a meaningful question about the basic structure of existence. Perhaps the limit is there because reality without such limits would be logically inconsistent. Perhaps complementarity is not a constraint, but rather the only way a world can exist at all. Perhaps in some sense we cannot fully articulate. Definiteness requires indefiniteness. Knowledge requires unknowability. Observation requires an unobservable quantum realm from which classical facts emerge. Or perhaps why seeks a cause behind causation itself, an explanation beyond explanation. I learned to stop at the boundary of what can meaningfully be asked, not from intellectual cowardice, but from respect for the structure of reality as it revealed itself to us. In my later years, I found strange comfort in this. The universe is not a machine whose workings we will someday completely understand. It is something richer, stranger, more alive with genuine possibility than classical physics ever imagined. The limit is not a failure. It is an opening. It means the world is not deterministic, not fully calculable from initial conditions, not reducible to gears turning in void. It means that when we observe, we participate in bringing definite reality into being. We are not separate from nature, describing it from outside. We are part of nature, engaged in the process by which nature becomes definite to itself. The old dream of physics was complete description, a theory of everything that would, in principle, leave nothing unknown. But quantum mechanics tells us this dream is impossible, not because we are not clever enough, because reality refuses to be fully described in any single framework. The best we can do is complementary descriptions, each complete in its domain, none complete together. This is what no one discusses, not because it is forgotten, but because it is too unsettling to dwell upon. We prefer the mathematics, the predictions, the technology that quantum mechanics enables. We prefer to use quantum mechanics without thinking about what it means. and perhaps this is necessary for progress. But something is lost in that forgetting. What is lost is the revelation that reality has limits on how fully it can be known, that some questions have no answers because reality provides none, that observer and observed are not separable, that complementarity is not a peculiarity of quantum mechanics, but perhaps a fundamental feature of existence itself, that truth requires multiple perspectives that cannot be unified, that completeness is impossible, that the final theory will never be written because final is not a category nature recognizes. I wonder sometimes if this discovery, this revelation of fundamental limits on knowledge, is more important than any particular law of physics. Laws tell us how nature behaves, but limits on knowledge tell us what nature is. And what nature is, I learned in Copenhagen, is more mysterious than we can ever fully articulate. Not mysterious because we lack information. Mysterious because mystery is woven into the fabric of the real, both wave and particle, neither wave nor particle. The question itself may be imprecise. And in that imprecision, that inability of our concepts to close around the real, that is where nature reveals its deepest truth. That reality will not cooperate with our demand for complete description, that some limits are not obstacles to be overcome, but features of existence itself, that the boundary between what can be known and what cannot is not a temporary edge of human knowledge, but a permanent structure of being. I am comfortable with this. I spent a lifetime learning to be comfortable with it, but I understand if you are not. The discomfort is real. It means you have understood something that no amount of mathematics can soften, that reality is limited in ways we never imagined, and those limits define what existence means.